Hey there, welcome back to Limabean Living. I have been making conchas like crazy over here, and I'm excited to share a new version with you today. Many of you may remember my chocolate chip chocolate concha recipe video. Well, I tweaked a few things and I created a strawberries and cream version that is just as doughy and soft. These also freeze well, so you can make a bunch and enjoy them over time, although I can't say they last that long in my home. So in today's video, I'm sharing step-by-step instructions on how you can make them at home all by yourself. So without further ado, let's get into this. So usually when I make these conchas, I use my bread machine to prepare the dough. I choose the dough cycle setting and just throw all of the ingredients inside and press start. But I recognize that not everyone has a bread machine, so we are going to say goodbye to that for now, and we are breaking out my stand mixer and dough hook. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, this can be done by hand, and I'll explain the slight modifications as we go. Now, the recipe that I'm going to be sharing can make anywhere from 12 large conchas to 32 smaller ones, depending on how you divide the dough. For the dough, you will need a half cup of milk, a half cup of water, a third of a cup of room temperature butter, a third of a cup of sugar, 1 egg, a teaspoon of salt, 3.5 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of yeast, and about 1.2 ounces of freeze-dried strawberries. I buy my 0.6 ounce bags from Dollar Tree. We want to get our liquid to be somewhere between 105 and 115 degrees Fahrenheit. One technique that you can use is by microwaving the water for about 45 seconds and then adding the cold milk to the hot water, and the temperature should be about where you want it. If the liquid is too hot, it will kill the yeast, and you won't have a good rise to the bread. To the warm liquid, you will want to add about a teaspoon of the recipe's sugar, as well as the tablespoon of yeast. On this day, I actually forgot to add the sugar at this step, but this mistake didn't seem to affect the final outcome in a noticeable way. Then give this a little stir, making sure all of the yeast comes in contact with the warm liquid. Then let it sit for about 5 minutes, and soon enough you will have a nice foamy mixture. Add this yeast mixture to your mixing bowl along with your butter, the rest of the sugar, your egg, the flour, and finally the salt. We won't be adding the strawberries in just yet. We want there to be some separation between the salt and the yeast because salt and yeast are not friends, so we want to have them come together gradually rather than combining them directly. As you saw, I lowered my dough hook and turned on my mixer to the lowest setting as I was adding in the ingredients. But you can wait to do this until you've added in everything to the bowl. After the dough has come together and has been kneaded for about maybe 10 to 12 minutes, you can go ahead and add in your freeze-dried strawberries. The moisture in the dough ends up rehydrating them enough so that they aren't crunchy in the final product. I ended up letting my stand mixer mix and knead this dough for a total of about 19 minutes. If you don't have a stand mixer, get ready for an arm workout. You can use a wooden spoon to combine the ingredients until a dough begins to form. Then pour the dough on a flat surface and begin to knead the dough with your hands. If you would like a tutorial on how to knead the dough, I'm sure you can find some great ones on YouTube. Anyways, every few minutes I scraped down the bowl and let my dough hook continue to knead my dough. When that was done, I scraped down the sides of my bowl one last time, placed a lid loosely on the bowl, we don't want it airtight, and selected the proofing option on my oven and set the dough inside. This creates a nice warm area for the dough to rise. If you don't have this option on your oven, you can warm your oven to about 170 degrees or its lowest setting, and then turn the oven off and place your dough inside the oven. Or you can always find a warm spot in your house to set your dough and leave it there until it doubles in size. While that is rising, let's go ahead and talk about the streusel topping. You are going to need 1 cup of flour, 2/3 of a cup of powdered sugar, a 1/2 cup or 1 stick of butter, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 1.6 ounce bag of freeze-dried strawberries. So just one Dollar Tree bag if that's where you're getting it. We want to use these strawberries to create a strawberry powder, so I will first be using my food processor to blend this up. If you don't have a food processor, you can grind these up by hand. Once the strawberries have been finely ground up, add the rest of the ingredients and mix until a Play-Doh-like consistency forms. My food processor has a dough blade, which I use for this step, but you can easily use a stand mixer with the paddle attachment to combine these ingredients as well. If using a stand mixer, I really suggest covering the mixer with saran wrap before turning it on to avoid any powder flying around and going everywhere. We are going to set this aside for a moment and revisit our dough. Now that it has doubled in size, we want to coat our counter with some flour, or in my case, I'm using a silicone mat, and plop our dough down. I like to give it another small coat of flour on top, and then divide the dough into the number of conchas you want. On this day, I divided the dough into 16 close to equal portions. If you want them to be completely identical, you can always use a food scale and make sure that they weigh the exact number of grams. To form the dough, take the dough in your hand and pull the outside portion of opposite ends of the dough up to the center and pinch together. Continue to pull dough from the outer edges and pinch together, rotating the dough in your hand as you go. This will make the dough that is actually touching the palm of your hand have a nice smooth surface. Repeat this process until all of your conchas have been shaped. To smooth out the bottom of the concha, you can place it down on the counter and cup your hand over the dough and then move your hand around in a circular motion. Then place these on your baking sheets. Next, we are going to take some softened butter and spread it on top of each dough ball. Recall that to make the dough, we only need to use 1/3 cup of butter. This is not quite a full stick, so save that little bit that is remaining for this step. Once all of the dough balls are coated in butter, it is time to add the streusel topping. Take the streusel that we mixed before and give it a little knead, especially if it's been sitting out for a bit. Then we want to divide the streusel into equal-sized portions based on the number of conchas you made. In my case, I'm making 16 equal balls of streusel topping. Again, if you want to be totally precise, you can always use a food scale. We are going to take our streusel ball and flatten it out so that it is about 1/4 of an inch thick. I like to sandwich my ball between 2 pieces of parchment paper, and then you can use a large flat surface to press down, flattening out the streusel. I have found that my dough scraper works great for this step. Then take this flattened streusel and place it on top of one of your dough balls. For the signature concha look, you can take a knife and cut slits into the streusel only. Since I make these a lot, I have purchased a concha cutter on Amazon. They are pretty inexpensive and make the step a lot easier. But you definitely don't need one to create this delicious concha. Then we are going to repeat the steps until all of the conchas are ready. Once assembled, I set them on top of my stove to rise while my oven preheats to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Then we throw these in for about 13 to 15 minutes, depending on the size of your conchas. I have found that when I make 24 to 32 smaller sized conchas using this recipe, they only need 12 to 13 minutes in the oven. But when I make 12 large conchas, they need about 15 minutes in the oven. They will be done when the exposed dough is like a nice golden brown. My family enjoys these most when they are fresh out of the oven. But since we aren't going to eat all of them in one sitting, I tend to package the rest up in airtight containers, and I keep some on the counter or fridge and place the rest in the freezer. They defrost rather quickly and are just as soft and doughy and delicious as the day I made them. If you want an even stronger strawberry flavor, you could add even more freeze-dried strawberries to the dough or some strawberry essence, maybe like a teaspoon, to the streusel topping. However, I have found that the natural and subtle strawberry flavor is just right for us. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you are new, I would love it if you stick around and subscribe to check out all of my motherhood content, and I will catch you in the next one. Woohoo! You've made it to the end of the video. If you didn't know already, every Monday and Friday, you can find motherhood and lifestyle content on this channel. And since us moms have to do it all, that may mean yummy recipes, easy DIYs, mom hacks, cleaning and organization, or just a combo of everything. Please know that you are loved and you are made for greatness, and I will catch you in the next one.